Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the HalloScream review series. This week and in the next 2 weeks, we're reviewing the Blumhouse trilogy. Is it an improvement on the previous schlockfest we've received over the years? Well, let's find out. Halloween. Halloween. Oh, damn it! Halloween 2018. Why is it that filmmakers can't get creative with these names? We've got A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Godzilla, Halloween, Scream, and. Oh, shit. Quick side note, go check out Danner's Dumpster, a new watch-along series here on the channel hosted by our very own Special Agent Danner Banner. The first episode featured this abomination.
Dana, can I talk to Dana?
There is no comedy, only cringe.
What a lovely singing voice you must have.
So 40 years after and an ass ton of mediocre to shit films later, we get a complete reboot of the whole timeline. What does this mean? Well, for starters, no bullshit Cult of Thorn, no brother-sister plot, no incest.
Be my little new miracle.
If you guys recall, one of my biggest problems with every Halloween movie after the original, and excluding 3, it explained Michael's motives and made him less like this and more like this.
Wash your hands, you son of a bitch! Your mama was a snowblower! What? Your mama was a snowblower!
And the biggest question is, does Halloween 2018 get things back on track? Well, yes and no. From the standpoint of making Michael less human and more like a force of nature, yes and no here too. On one hand, Michael isn't shedding tears, he isn't talking, he's not trying to kill his sister. In this film, he's a killer, a brutal killer. On the other hand, the movie suffers from an issue that I mentioned in previous videos. Because this movie reboots everything after the first film, you'd think they would stick to the original ending as well. But you'd be wrong. Yes, they reboot everything, yet make a big mistake that affects Michael and his counterpart Laurie. Instead of having Michael disappear for 40 years, he's been incarcerated all this time. For 40 years, Michael's been locked up. He essentially regressed to how he was after he killed Judith in 1963, and 40 years is a long time. Now, how does this affect Laurie? Well, instead of moving on with her life and being normal, all things considered, she becomes Sarah Connor. I think I'll coin the term the Sarah Connor formula. Put in simple terms, have your female protagonist encounter a big bad in her first movie when she's younger, naive, and not ready for a proper stand-up fight. She survives her encounter and lives to see another movie where she is now a hardcore badass, taking shit from no one and is itching for battle. Technically, Ellen Ripley did this first in Alien. Then again, Ripley doing what she did in the first movie could be considered badass anyways. Regardless, we'll call it the Sarah Connor formula. So Laurie Strode has become a somewhat reclusive woman with an arsenal that would make Carter blush with excitement. She trained herself and her daughter in the ways of combat, and why, you might ask? Because Michael's been incarcerated for 40 years and he might get out again. Okay. In my review of H2O, I stated that Sarah Connor Laurie would make more sense in that film instead of this one, and the fact that Michael has been missing with no sightings in 20 years could make someone more self-aware of their surroundings and will want to learn self-defense. That's not to say it couldn't happen in the 2018 story, it just makes more sense in H2O. And mind you, I like the Sarah Connor formula. It's entertaining to see, especially when we get to this film's climax. With that in mind, it still doesn't fit quite right compared to how much better it would have fit if it was used in H2O. And just like Sarah Connor, Laurie can't forget the night that changed her life. Her obsession with Michael Myers drove her to the point where her own family all but disowned her, with the exception of her granddaughter Allison. And Allison here is our new Laurie Strode, as in she's the young high schooler who witnesses Michael's power firsthand. She loses her friends and comes face to face with pure evil. She's a decent character, all things considered, and she's definitely more likable than Laurie's son in H2O. Aside from Allison, the other characters are serviceable. I don't have too many complaints, but I will say the one annoying character that was a little distracting was the husband of Laurie's daughter. His scenes aren't that interesting, and his character is honestly forgettable. Okay, let's talk about the story and the additions made to the original Halloween. The biggest issue I have with this film is how they retconned the ending of the original film and had Michael get caught in 1978. Because this film rebooted everything after the original, they had an opportunity to do H2O's idea of Michael being MIA properly. Instead, they opted to have Michael stay locked up and he escapes again. This creative choice has a deeper meaning than some realize. Let me explain. After what I consider to be the turning point of the entertainment industry with the Disney acquisition of Lucasfilm and by extension the rights to the Star Wars franchise, movie studios began getting this idea of bringing back old franchises by making a new film that could almost be considered a remake. Both studios, and more importantly fans, try to justify these choices by saying things like, this movie is a return to form, or this creative choice was necessary to bring the franchise back to its roots. Now look, you guys already know that I'm not a Rob Zombie Halloween fan. With that said, there was no other choice but to reboot the franchise. Personally, I would have just said leave Halloween alone and move on, but because Halloween Resurrection was one of the biggest dumpster fires that sunk the Halloween franchise, there was nothing left. The Rob Zombie films merely picked up the ashes of what was left of Halloween, and to their credit, they at least went down a different road and told their own story. Too bad they had to call it Halloween, but I digress. My point is that soft reboots are now becoming a reoccurring trend in film. Star Wars did it, Halloween did it, Ghostbusters did it, and Jesus Christ, Texas Chainsaw did it, unfortunately. For at least one of those franchises, it worked out with mainly positive reactions. With others, not so much. And unfortunately, Halloween is a mixed bag so far. This film feels like a Halloween movie, and at the same time, it feels odd. It has decent pacing, and the soundtrack is really good. It's just, some of the characters and plot points feel rehashed, and like a product of this time period, which sucks if I'm being honest. My generation and some of the younger generation in our culture are not as appealing as a decade like the 80s. Back then, the big trends were kick ass music, action movies, slashers, and sweet hairstyles. These days, it's all about this bullshit.
At NATO,
diversity
is our strength.
For the book purists, for the Peter Jackson fans that are married to the films, what message do you have for them as they're awaiting the premiere of the series?
I would say, come along for the ride.
So what do we learn about woman dwarves that we didn't know through your portrayal?
Well, we learned that they exist. This is necessary. This is a revolutionary moment within our time, and to be the poster child of accessibility for people of colour, for women.
But this is the first time that we see a woman, and the first time that we see a black woman in this area and this world and these works of Tolkien. You know, this is necessary.
Diversity is our strength.
And one more question. What does it mean to be a woman in film?
It means it's really hard. And if you're a woman of color, then it's really, really hard. Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. But what I am saying is that if you make a movie that is a love letter to women of color, there is an insanely low chance a woman of color will have the chance to see your movie and review your movie.
Diversity is our strength.
And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. I'm just saying we need to be conscious of our bias and do our part to make sure that everyone is in the room.
Diversity is our strength.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Diversity is our strength.
Hi, I'm Officer Lutz with the Columbus Division of Police. I'm your LGBTQIA+ liaison officer. And we're unveiling right now our Pride Cruiser for the month of June.
Sexism in gaming.
Hey guys, let's talk gender, specifically Libra genders. Firstly, know the difference between a static or a stable gender, one that doesn't change, and a fluid gender, one that does change. Now, Libra genders. Libra gender people.
I think it's time for another adult pre-K lesson. What do you think? All right, turn your listening ears on. Zoop, catch a bubble in your mouth. Good job. Okay, here's the thing. Having a preference is something like, I'm looking for a partner who likes kayaking, or wakes up early in the morning, or loves pizza. But when your preferences exclude an entire group of marginalized people, that's problematic. Okay, that's not nice. That's not a preference. If you lump all fat people in one group together as though they are not very different individuals, that's fatphobic. Just like lumping all black people in one group and saying, I don't like black people is racist. And lumping all disabled people in one group and saying, I don't think people in wheelchairs are hot is ableist. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Who the fuck starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
People have been messing with me my whole life. I learned a long time ago that there's no sense getting all riled up every time a bunch of idiots give you a hard time. In the end, the universe tends to unfold as it should.
Aside from the fact that the 2018 film is a rehash of the original film with Michael escaping and returning to Haddonfield, the atmosphere of modern day culture takes me out of the film a bit. With some moments, it feels like a Carpenter film, and other scenes feels like a product of the times. With that said, let's move on to the look of Michael. I think Rob Zombie's film had a good amount of influence on the look of Michael's mask in this film. I actually really like the withered look of it. It shows the passage of time and updates the classic style. I do find it funny that Michael chooses another boiler suit. As far as the performance goes, James Jude Courtney does pretty well. He has good body movement, and he brings some of that Rob Zombie's Jake Myers brutality. It's a decent blend. But that said, there's one big question that still lingers. Is Michael supernatural, or just an ordinary human? Well, this film doesn't really answer it. Hell, I can't even say that the next film gives us a definitive answer. But we'll save that for next week's review. If I were to give a numerical rating from 1 to 10 on this film, I'd give it about a 5 out of 10. Like Star Wars The Force Awakens, Halloween 2018 follows similar beats to the original and doesn't do too much new. Oh, except for this little twist that amounts to nothing. I'm sorry, what was the point in making this little chubby man put on the Myers mask? I'm not gonna lie, when I first seen this movie in theaters, I actually thought Michael was dead for a moment, and they were gonna use Dr. Zartane of all people as the killer. Dear Lord, I can only imagine the backlash. Well, that's Halloween 2018. Stay tuned for...
Emerge! He is an apex predator. When he surfaces, there will be no pause. There will be no empathy. This ends when Michael is dead! Evil dies tonight!
Oh, god damn it!
Evil dies tonight! All right. Evil dies tonight! Evil dies tonight! All right.
Shit. I'm Special Agent Spooky Clutter. I'm Special Agent Carter Sauce. Special Agent Dr. Richtofen. And until next time, fellow investigators, remember... The entertainment is out there.